Reid just did something that no Chicago PD villain has done in its 12 seasons on NBC. Deputy Chief Reid, Sean Hatosi, has managed something that nobody else ever has in Chicago PD. Many have attempted to shut down Sergeant Voight, Jason Begg, and his Chicago Police Intelligence Unit, and they have arrested and suspended members of the team to do it in the past. Yet, within a few episodes, Reid has shown that he can do the job he set out to do. While we're not a fan of intelligence being shut down, there is no doubt that it makes for a far more interesting story. Now, eyes are on how Voight will be able to get his unit back, as well as how he'll get Burgess, Marina Scorciati, Job Back, and Torres, Benjamin Levy Aguilar, out of his sticky situation. There is a lot of ground to cover in the Chicago PD Season 12 finale, and it seems unlikely that everything will be resolved before Chicago PD Season 13 begins. Throughout Chicago PD Season 12, Reid has proven that he is a threat to everyone. From the minute he sat down and shared that he knew Torres had been involved with his CI, and that Burgess covered for him, we knew that this was not a man to be trusted. He would work nicely with Voight for as long as Voight could offer him something good. Of course, Voight had to get Reid off his back, and that led to him looking for a way to take down the dirty cop. The problem for Voight is that the deputy chief has his hands in multiple pockets, making sure that everyone owes him a favor, or they need him for protection. It was only a matter of time before Reid realized that the formidable leader of intelligence was up to something and finding a way to take him down. Rather than be the one taken down, Reid decided to act first in Chicago PD Season 12, Episode 21. Considering his position and the information that he had, it wasn't hard to arrest Torres and suspend Burgess without pay. With how Voight covered for them, it wouldn't have taken much for Deputy Chief Reid to convince the rest of the top brass that intelligence wasn't to be trusted. This is certainly not the first time that someone has come in with the attempt to take down Voight, but it is the first time someone has completely disbanded the unit in the One Chicago series. Most of the time, there is a criminal who wants to get rid of intelligence, knowing that their freedom is under attack. However, now and again, other members of the police force have targeted intelligence. During Chicago PD Season 7, Atwater decided to go against the blue line, noting racial discrimination at a time when systemic racism was at a problematic height. It led to Atwater being targeted in Chicago PD Season 8, with him almost being left for dead because his radioing for help was ignored. Since Voight stood by Atwater, there were issues with the other cops against intelligence, but nobody came as far as disbanding the unit. Another attempt to get revenge on Voight was in Chicago PD Season 5, when evidence was planted against Alinsky, alias Cotillas. Alinsky ended up killed while in prison, and Voight went on a mission to clear his name. While Voight was temporarily suspended, the rest of the intelligence unit was able to keep running. Had Voight said something to the rest of intelligence earlier in Chicago PD Season 12, they may have been able to avoid this. However, it's clear that Reid has had information in his pocket for months, and the only way for intelligence to get the team back together is by taking down Reid. That's something they will do in the Chicago PD Season 12 finale, with a synopsis telling us that they will act in an unofficial capacity. They will need ASA Chapin's Sarah Buse help to finally take Reid down. She isn't happy with the way Voight is willing to act off the books, as it is immoral and illegal, but this is all that Voight can do at this point. There is no way that doing things the right way will help at this point. The best way to take Reid down is to gather all the others Reid has something on. This will help to form a defense against the deputy chief, who is sure to lash out if he continues to feel attacked. Of course, this is difficult to do, but it will be worth it to get intelligence back together and Burgess back with the team. Then they can work on getting Torres out of jail, which will be a little harder considering he did do what he has been arrested for doing. It's hard to tell if there is enough time to fix everything in the Chicago PD Season 12 final. Some of the storylines may need to wait for the 13th season of the Dick Wolf Universe series, especially when it comes to getting Torres out of jail. However, even if everything is wrapped up neatly by the end of the episode, moving forward, arcs are going to be a lot more interesting. The trust with the rest of PD has been severed. Despite Reid's dirty actions, he has arrested Torres for something genuine, and Burgess did help to cover up the crime. People are going to see that information and will want to act on it, even if Reid is disgraced, and this means they will keep looking at anything else that intelligence will do. From Chicago PD Season 13 onward, intelligence will need to be on their best behavior. They will need to do everything by the book for some time, and that will make finding criminals and getting answers a little bit harder to do. They will need to think more creatively, which leads to some compelling storylines when Chicago PD returns. For 12 seasons, Chicago PD has taken fans on a relentless ride through the gritty, dangerous streets of Chicago. Viewers have seen corrupt politicians, deranged serial killers, mob bosses with decades-long reigns, and even a few officers cross the line. But no one, and we mean no one, has done what Dominic Reid just did. In an episode that's already being called one of the boldest in Chicago PD history, Reid shattered not just the law, but the unspoken boundaries of the intelligence unit's iron grip on justice. Dominic Reid wasn't your average criminal mastermind. He didn't lead with brute force or backroom threats. He didn't run a cartel or bury bodies to cover his tracks. No, Reid came in quietly, understated and calculating. A criminal psychologist turned vigilant, he understood the minds of both the victims and the detectives better than anyone. And that's what made him the most dangerous villain the unit has ever faced. What Reid did wasn't flashy. It wasn't explosive, at first, but it was revolutionary. He got into the head of Hank Voight. Yes, that Hank Voight, the man who's known for breaking suspects down with nothing but a stare. The man whose own moral compass spins on an axis of justice, loyalty, and quiet rage. Voight has gone toe-to-toe with drug lords and rogue FBI agents. But never before has he lost the upper hand in a psychological battle. Until now. It started subtly. Reid appeared in the precinct under the guise of assisting a multi-agency task force investigating a rise in vigilant crimes. The irony was thick. The man behind the very crimes was posing as the expert to catch himself. But Reid didn't want to disappear into the shadows like other villains. No, he wanted to be seen. He wanted Voight to know he existed. And he wanted Voight to understand him. Reid left breadcrumbs. He manipulated suspects into false confessions. He tampered with crime scene evidence, not to escape, but to frame others he deemed more deserving of punishment. And then, in a move that left audiences stunned, he turned himself in. Voluntarily, smirking. That's when the game began. In the interrogation room, Reid unraveled Voight, not with threats, but with truths. He spoke about grief, about the rot inside justice systems, about how sometimes letting a killer walk means another innocent person dies. And he used Voight's own past against him. Justin, Olinsky, Darius Walker, cases where Voight bent the rules, crossed lines. Reid laid it all out like a patient therapist dissecting trauma.